Mayor Pete has been doing these big money fundraisers, and he's closed them to the press. And he's also closed them to the public because he wants to hide his corruption. I mean, this is relatively obvious if you've been paying attention. He is one of the top recipients of billionaire money, for example. He's got no bones about taking Wall Street money. You name the special interest, he's like, gimme, gimme, gimme. Well, some good reporters decided, let's ask him about this. Let's ask him about the fact that he hasn't released fundraising numbers and that he's closed a lot of these big money fundraisers to the press. His reaction here is really something else.
Earlier today, you said you were open to having a conversation about opening your fundraisers, and that's a question that reporters have been asking for months now, so I'm wondering, when do you expect to actually have that conversation and give, an answer on that?
Again, I don't have a timeline for you.
As the candidate, can't you just direct your campaign to open those fundraisers?
What's that?
As the candidate, can't you just direct your campaign to open those fundraisers?
Yes.
And why haven't you done so?
What's that?
Why haven't you done so yet?
There are a lot of considerations, and I'm thinking about it.
Last question. Can you give us an example of those considerations?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Mayor. Thanks. Thank you.
Mask off. Here it is. See, this is what happens in a situation where Mayor Pete is tired. He's been on the road probably most of the day. He's been doing events, and he's just not in a good mood. And when you're not in a good mood, you're more likely to face a situation of mask off. And that's what that is. And also, note to every reporter out there who actually cares about their job, this is why you ask direct questions. Because it's harder to do your little Weasley tap dance around a direct question. So credit to those reporters for doing exactly that. And there it is, man. That's a situation of he can't defend what he's doing. He's not going to try. He realizes he can't do his BS tap dance for whatever reason. He's not in the mood or whatever it might be. And so you have a beautiful moment for everybody to see the reality of Mayor Pete. Now, this is the same guy who's been going everywhere and saying, it's time for a new kind of politics. Tired of the old ways in Washington, D.C., and that's why I'm going to keep doing the old way to a T. He's acting the exact way that, old school politicians do, and he's adopting all of their bad habits. He's gone full bore on the corruption as he's pretending like he's against it, and he's for a new kind of politics. He's like the quintessential hacky BSing politician. Now, there's another video that came out. Some people went to a Mayor Pete event, and they asked him, oh, you're going to get big money out of politics, right? And he's like, yes. And they say, well, then, will you stop taking corporate money and billionaire money? And he's like, no. Again, he's been out there on the campaign trail. He's probably tired. He's not in a good mood. And he's just like, you know what, man? I'm tired of dealing with the same questions over and over. I'm just going to let it all hang out. And in a weird way, I want to give him credit because, hey, at least you're not, you're not hiding it. This is not as deceptive as the stuff you normally say. Mayor Pete is famous for never giving a direct answer. Well, apparently when he's in a bad mood, he gives a direct answer, and the direct answer is exactly the one that you feared it was. No, I'm not going to I'm not going to stop taking, I can't talk today. I'm not going to stop taking corporate money and billionaire money. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oh, can you release the fundraising numbers? And can you allow the press into your fundraisers? No. Will you release the numbers? No. Can you tell us what those considerations are as to why you won't? No. He's acting like he's got a lot to hide because he's got a lot to hide. Again, from what we know, he's one of the top recipients of billionaire money. Mayor Pete at this point is the insurance plan of the establishment. They have a few. He's one of them. He's hanging on for dear life in terms of viability, where his numbers are. Now, I have a slightly different opinion on that because he's got zero black support, and you're not going to win a Democratic primary with zero black support. It's hilarious to think that you could do that. So I'm not convinced of his viability, but mainstream media is convinced of his viability. The Democratic establishment is convinced of his viability. And since he's their insurance plan, they're now doing everything to pump him up. So you see relentless positive media coverage, and you see a lot of big money fundraisers that he's more than happy to partake in. And now It's time to pay the piper because we're in a particular, a clear anti-establishment, anti-corruption, populist era. That's like one of the defining characteristics of our era. It's populist politics. So now people are, of course they're going to ask. They're genuinely curious. They want to know how you're raising your money. And they want to see the specifics. And his response is effectively, piss off. Not going to tell you because you ain't going to like it. All right, well, I think Mayor Pete's moment in the sun is, it's almost up. Remember, guys, we had a bunch of politicians, a bunch of Democratic candidates exploded in the polls and then kind of tanked again. We've seen Kamala Harris have her moment in the sun. She did really well in those first two debates, really well, to the point where I was like, she's going to be one of the last ones there with Bernie, for sure. I was wrong, because what's happened with a lot of these characters is they started out by head faking to the left and like agreeing with Bernie. Kamala used to brag about being the first person to sign on to Bernie's Medicare for All bill in the Senate. And then there was a decision at some point, okay, now you're a viable candidate, so now be more centrist already in the primary. Doesn't matter. Or started already. That didn't work out well. Elizabeth Warren was arguing on the side of Bernie Sanders against everybody else on stage when it came to Medicare for All and a variety of issues in a bunch of the debates. She was surging in the polls to the point where she even passed Bernie at one point. Then she backed off Medicare for All. She kind of waffled a little bit on a variety of issues, and then all of a sudden, she started plummeting as well. Now, Mayor Pete is a fascinating case because he only pretended to be a lefty for about 2.5 minutes in the campaign. There are angry tweets of his in 2018 telling people, I'm for Medicare for All. Why would you get any other idea? Of course I'm for Medicare for All. And then, of course, now he's famously not. He's for Medicare for All who want it. And he's been aggressively centrist for at least 3 debates now. At least 3 debates. And his poll numbers are going up. They're going up. But that's a hard line to walk in a Democratic primary where you're outwardly centrist, but you have to try to make that palatable enough to get enough votes to win a Democratic primary. That's tough. And you have to be a masterful politician to do it. And now you see the mask is coming off. And it's unfathomable to me that he maintains this level of support with being this brazen and grotesque with his corruption and his disregard for the will of the voters. So I think it's possible that Mayor Pete will be on the decline very soon, if not already, because this is a bridge too far. It's one thing to make your nonsense arguments for your terrible positions, which he does. Like, oh, no free college because we shouldn't fund the kids of millionaires and billionaires. It's one thing to make your terrible arguments, and if you don't know why that's a terrible argument, watch my other videos on that. I go into great detail on that. It's one thing to have the facade, but once the facade goes, you got nothing left. And your support is barely hanging on, so TikTok, I think the fall of Mayor Pete possibly has begun.